Welcome to Richmond Kickers Weekly. My name is Daryl Grove. Here is Everest Taylor Rockwell.
Hello.
Hello.
Mm-hmm.
But more importantly,
we
are joined by a special guest.
I mean, hurtful but accurate.
Richmond Kickers head coach David Bulow. Welcome back to the studio.
Bonjour, mes amis.
He got fancy in the interim since last we saw him.
So learning French is the thing that's turned the Kickers around.
Yeah, absolutely.
Allons-y is what you've been saying to the fans.
Allez.
Is this one of those like sports movies where you all had the montage of like taking French lessons and cooking classes and now you're all bonded together?
Oui.
We'll do the rest of it in English then.
Right.
Just for,
that'd be good for me.
For our unilingual listeners.
Okay.
All right, so Richmond Kickers 2-2 against Toronto 2 this past weekend. Want to quickly talk about that, but we also want to talk about the big turnaround, right? 4 games unbeaten after that not happening in June, shall we say.
Yes.
Let's start with what happened on Saturday. 2-0 up early, 2 Daniel Jackson goals, then 2... Not 2 equalisers. 2 goals, 1 equaliser from Toronto in the second half. Let's start with the positive. Daniel Jackson scoring goals.
Yeah, I mean, he came off the bench. I think he scored almost right away.
3 minutes.
Yeah, I know. So it was great. It was funny. I said to Mika just before he scored, I said, I think DJ's going to score today. So I was pleased with that.
Can I ask, is it as simple as, so Dennis Chin started that game against Madison, Daniel Jackson came off the bench, scored. Is that what changed the lineup decision for the next week? Is it, hey, he scored, he's in? Is it as simple as that?
A little bit. I think part of the management side of it is you have to keep as many people bought in as possible.
Yeah.
And there's a balance of trying to figure out, okay, you don't want to change a winning team. Mm-hmm. You know, I think Maxey coped well with that, where just to try something different, having not won in a long time, he was not in the starting lineup against Orlando.
Right. Yeah.
It was just give another guy a chance, try to do something different. And, when you win and then you win away to Toronto, their first loss of the season, then you win again in Madison, it's going, ugh, you don't want to change much, but at the same time, you want to make sure you don't lose, that next 5 to 7 guys either.
Yeah. So we assume Dennis was cool with Daniel Jackson starting.
No, of course not. Of course not. No, everybody wants to play.
I guess that's good news, right?
Yeah, the reality is, the honest answer is, I remember being in Ireland going, I hope we win, but I hope none of the forwards score, so I can get in. You're happy when the team wins and does well, but that's the hard part of being out of the team. Everybody wants to start. Everybody wants to play.
Yeah.
Everybody's disappointed when they come off. But the reality is we have a squad for a reason, and who knows what's going to happen towards the end of the year when you need everybody. And I think we've made some good subs over the last 3-4 games. So we know we can count on guys, and it's just a matter of keeping guys excited to get on and make a difference. So of course Dennis was disappointed.
How much does communication factor into that for you? Is it like is it just saying to him like, hey, it's going to be DJ today and that's it? Or are you kind of conveying to him what's going on, why you're switching it around, telling him to be ready?
I think you have to. I think you have to be that transparent. They can not like it, but that's their job. And I'm not perfect by any means. I was back and forth whether to play Connor Shinosky against North Texas, early in the year, and left it way late. I literally didn't have an idea what I was going to do until the last minute, and he found out by seeing the board, and he took it really poorly, and he was right. I should have been much more upfront with somebody like that who's a veteran. So
how much notice did you give Connor in that instance?
On that day against Texas?
Match day?
None. Yeah, none.
An hour before the game? Or?
Yeah, about that. That. Maybe a little bit more. Not
because you were making the decision still.
Yeah, I was still torn.
Wow. Ricardo Pepi can.
I know. I mean, it was one of those things. I think you're young and athletic, and do you want his composure on the ball or the athleticism of Wahab and Ivan?
Right.
And
no, I can see how that's a tough decision.
It was tough, and I got it wrong because we lost.
So by contrast, how much notice did you give, say, Chin that Jackson was starting this game against Toronto?
Sometimes they get an idea. You can read the tea leaves in training, kind of what it looks like, but
because you set up like a starting 11 to play against the other guys?
Sometimes, and you make changes just to test some things out. But I think guys, for the most part, have an idea what's coming, but I think you're better off just being up front. Just be prepared for this. I haven't made my final decision, but be prepared to play either way. And, at 2-0, it looked good. I was thinking at halftime, that maybe we can get other guys. Get Greg Bain an opportunity. He hasn't played in a while. But those are hard to predict ahead of time.
Mm-hmm. No, and then the two goals, the one equalizer, the two comeback goals.
You know what happened in my head. Right?
I know exactly. It's difficult to explain. Both of those coming from set pieces, if people haven't seen. For you, is that especially frustrating? I mean, Alexi Lalas talks about that all the time on the air about set pieces. For you, is that something where you feel like that's a thing we definitely shouldn't be allowing because that's a thing we can definitely work on, or is it just kind of part and parcel of the game that they had some good deliveries and that's how it goes?
Well, they're very good at set pieces, so I mean. It's a little disappointing that we weren't completely switched on. I'm disappointed in myself that I didn't prepare well enough in some ways. If I had any confusing language leading up to those moments, that's always frustrating, but it's an opportunity for me to learn and get better. But I mean,
can I interject there? I have a question for you. So, if you're saying if you're blaming yourself a little bit about some of the communication, how able are you in the moment to process that? Like, if one of your defenders comes off and says, like, "Well, you told us to be here," and you felt like you didn't say that. Are you able to hear that at the moment and think like, I didn't communicate that effectively? Or do you get angry and feel like, no, you did it wrong, that's not on me, and then you have to think about it later on?
Immediately, for the second goal especially, I knew they were going to score. I could see it.
Really?
The setup was not how I intended it to be. From my vantage point, it looked like they went with a completely different tactic.
They being your players? Or
yes, my players. And I was moaning to everybody on the bench, why would they do something different? Like, we plan. I'll interject here. When I say communication, I think the typical understanding of communication is what we're doing right now, talking. But I think communication is far deeper than that. It's listening. It's looking. It's just being generally aware of your surroundings. And you can intentionally or unintentionally communicate with somebody. If I've turned my back to you and running away from you, I'm unintentionally communicating. You better hit a pass in front of me. Because
every time you're looking at Daryl, I'm taking it personally. I just want you to know that. That's how I feel right now.
So
it's like, that's how it's going to be.
Those little details matter, and to make everybody aware of it, it's the old Messi with Argentina versus Barcelona. He communicates regularly with Barcelona teammates much more than he does with Argentina. So it's easier to operate because you know what's coming. It's very predictable. For your teammates.
I remember, so you came in and we did an interview in pre-season. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think I remember you talking about the importance of the specificity of words.
Absolutely.
That certain words can have unintended meanings, even though you were trying to communicate something slightly different. And so if people haven't seen the second goal, which we're talking about, it's 87th minute? Taylor always double checks.
Oh, I was just noticing how similarly you two are dressed. That's genuinely where my brain was. So I was wondering if you were wearing shorts. That's why I went away from the table.
Pink shirt Tuesday.
I know. I didn't get the memo. I feel left out, guys. We just so frequently are wearing the exact same shirt that it's nice to see that you now have extended that tradition
the same
to Coach Bulow.
Exactly. Well, yes. We get sponsors that send us things.
No, I meant like the single same shirt.
Oh yeah, one arm in each.
Or exactly. Yeah, we do some twinsies stuff.
You've taken me slightly off topic.
My bad.
If people haven't seen the second goal, 87th minute, it's a Toronto free kick that is sort of, crossed is a weird word, but like sort of floated, clipped in.
Called served.
Served is a good word. And Toronto win the header, put it past Akira Fitzgerald. And it's 2-2, right? That's what cost the Kickers 2 points. And you were talking about you thought maybe that your instructions weren't exactly followed. And I wondered how much you can tell us about sort of what you'd ask your players to do to defend a free kick like that and what they actually did.
I think they did exactly what I asked them, and that's the problem. And that's why I take ownership of it after the fact. And it isn't until you start to talk to your teammates. You talk to Connor, who's in the middle of it. Why did he do something different?
Shinosky centre back, right?
Yeah. And
not everybody's on first name terms with the players.
Mr. Shinosky. When
that's what I call him.
Yeah. Me too. When I asked him what happened, and he said, I felt we were in the right position, I got caught.
Yeah.
And then you go
and went over everybody's head, basically.
Yeah. So, and that wasn't the plan. But it's interesting. We'll have to get Mika in here sometime because it's so
assistant
interesting.
Coach.
Yeah, our assistant coach, he's Finnish, and the Finnish language, there isn't any confusion. Each word has one meaning. And if it has a different meaning, it's a different word. So you use a different word if you mean this versus that. So
you should teach the entire team Finnish.
I know, we're trying.
Daniel Jackson can already Finnish.
Yeah, they greet each other. Daniel
Boo.
Jackson.
I boo your puns. as always.
Dang, I missed it. Yellow card. So yeah, to that point, the English language can be really confusing.
Yeah.
And so in that moment, I mean, there's an exact moment in training in that exact part of the
this
field.
Free kick we're talking about?
With the free kick. I mean, almost identical situation. I reminded them, this is your starting point. We all agree this is our starting point. How you deal with it, it's your individual job to sort those problems out individually and collectively. But for the sake of communication, start here in this shape, in this way.
And I assume we're being very careful here about what we say, so we don't give out exactly what.
Exactly.
Okay,
but it's clear there's a plan, there's a method for it, and I mean, really, if you look at it, I know we got a little bit of criticism, for conceding again from set pieces, but we haven't really conceded from set pieces in a while. It's been some time. I think we've been very good defensively, and
so the plan's been working.
I think so. I mean, you have to tip your cap to them as well. The service they put in was exceptional on both of the goals. So, but that aside, in training specifically, I said, if they bring more numbers to this part of the field, make sure you shift to adjust for it. Well, they took that literally. Bad language for me. They shifted too far and took away the advantage of our initial
setup. Is that why everybody was so close? Because it looked very clustered as it's about to be served in. And you're saying that your players overinterpreted what you said.
Exactly.
Maybe one way of saying it. And got too tight.
Exactly.
And that's why there was that space to float it in behind.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Serve it in behind. Excuse me.
Yeah.
How almost mechanical is that supposed to be then? Because I think where we play, obviously at amateur level, it's much more this is how we defend. We're defending man-to-man or zone or whatever. Mm-hmm. But do you get pushback on some of those things that if your player's okay, we don't think this is going to work, but it's what we're being told to do? I guess it never occurred to me how much that is you trusting the players and them trusting you in that sequence.
It's a really complicated game. It's a chaotic game. It's 22 individuals that are making decisions at the same time in coordination with each other. Mm-hmm. Not just your own teammates, but with the opponent as well. And that can cause confusion. It's chaos. If you don't have some sort of organization, if you don't make an agreement between the coach and the players that this is where we're going to start and this is generally the patterns that we're going to look for, it becomes too chaotic, in my opinion. We had pushback from the players early in the season, but coach, couldn't we do it this way? And the answer is always, of course you could. We could do it a number of ways. There is no one right way to play soccer. Again, you go back to Ireland, they're very direct. Lower leagues in England, it's very direct. The top European clubs or top clubs in the world will play with a bit more possession and the ball's on the ground. One's not better than the other. It's just a matter of what your playing personnel is, what your fitness levels are, what the culture of your country is. We would all love to play like Man City and Barcelona, but not everybody can. Mm-hmm. But even they have a very specific pattern and plan, and because it's predictable. It becomes predictable for your teammates. And it's still enough of a chaotic game where that predictability is hard to read from the opponent. But without that predictability, it's almost impossible to be successful.
And then we've talked a little bit about communication. I wanted to ask you a little bit about stress, if you don't mind, because we had the run where there were no goals being scored, not many positive results. For you in those moments, how stressful is that? Not even necessarily from a job security standpoint, but just if you're going into a thing and thinking this is when it's going to turn around, now it's going to be different, and then it doesn't turn around. How do you handle those sorts of moments?
I think I'm pretty optimistic anyway. I go into every game that I play, checkers, hopscotch, whatever, that I'm going to win.
Playing a lot of hopscotch these days?
A lot. There's an elementary school near the house. It's summertime. Kids aren't there. Get the whole yard.
Maybe less hopscotch, more coaching.
You'd think that.
No, this is in the montage of learning French and everything. The whole team's playing hopscotch.
I played no hopscotch in June, so I'm going to stick with it. I want to win and think I can win any game I play. I mean, that's what is it, Herm Edwards? You play to win the game, So I always set out to win games. Mm-hmm. I always think it's going to turn. I mean, even I'm thinking against Espanyol last year. I'd been on the job for about 2 weeks. I'm going, all right, we can win this. Let's go. But whether that's naive or not is another point. But
there's no point playing if you don't think it's possible, right?
Exactly. You're going to go out and try your best to win. Both teams are. I mean, that's why you play. But
we have practice tonight. We're going to try and win the practice game.
Let me put it this way.
But I would say yes. The stress comes into it.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's a professional job. If you don't win, then you get the sack. That's That's true for any professional coach in the world.
I think
so. It weighs on the back of your mind, but it's also something I can't really control. The decisions of somebody else, whether they want me or not. I would like to think what we're trying to do as a club culturally and moving forward, we're doing the right thing. I mean, we've got a great atmosphere in the team. We're very positive. We're not far off. I mean, if we would have gotten 4 or 5 more points from June, we'd all be laughing. Everybody would say, "Oh yeah, the Kickers look good."
So we really want to talk about how things turned around, because there was the bad run, right, with no wins, no goals in June, all that. We've said that enough times. But now 4 games unbeaten. There were 3 wins in a row before the Toronto draw, and frankly, the team just looks more effective, looks better when we watch. Like, we really enjoyed Saturday, right? It was an enjoyable game. The Kickers looked good, right? So essentially, what's changed? I mean, I can tell you things that have changed. Like, I know that it seems like you've changed the midfield. You mentioned Maxi Rodriguez not playing, instead Braden Troyer sitting in the middle. And to me, that's a big change, because Maxi's such a possession-heavy player and maybe like drew the ball to him all the time, whereas Braden Troyer does the opposite and he's more of a defensive player. So that's one thing that we noticed. I wondered if you got any more specific things, like any big things that you've changed that have caused this turnaround.
No, I think... it was the North Texas was the last loss that we had. And I think we had a plan for that, but it was a little less clear. And I think from that, I wanted to make sure that we had a foundation of defending first, that we were really secure in our defending and really being clear in our roles. I think the way that
So that was the new thing, is to go...
Yes, just be hyper clear. Again, you go back to language. Just, there is no room for discussion. This is what each player's role is supposed to do. We came up with PowerPoints and animated sequences. When the ball's in this area, this rotation should come here. It was hard because some guys were going, well, shouldn't we do it this way? And I'm going, you could do that way, but no, let's keep it clear, simple. We're all on the same page. Let's start this as our foundation. I think that's been the biggest key, to try to create overloads defensively. So we're always in a position where we have a free player to help.
Okay.
That's been helpful. Then I think in attack, I think we're going a little bit away from just possession for possession's sake. It's not to say that we don't want to dominate the ball and don't want to have games where we have 500, 600, 700 passes. We certainly do. But at the end of the day, I'll ask you guys a question. What's the best pass in soccer?
The through ball?
Ooh, good guess. Wrong.
There's a definitive answer here.
Yes, there
when
is.
I pass to Taylor, that's the...
I mean, I would say the simple one. I'm going metaphorical now. Are you looking for a literal pass?
It's literally the best pass in the game.
I mean, 10-9?
Nope. It's in the goal. Right?
Oh, yeah, okay.
The best pass is in the goal.
All right.
And it doesn't matter who has the ball.
We may have overthought this a little bit.
Yes.
Trick question.
It can be quite a simple game, though. So if Akira has the ball at goal, the best pass he can make would kick it in the goal. That's not like
the other one.
Yeah, the other one, right?
I genuinely was very confused for a moment. I was like,
It's not.
what are you advocating now?
It's about specificity.
Right.
It's about match fixing is what it sounds
bad
like.
Bad language, right? So the best pass would be to pass it in the opponent's goal.
Uh-huh.
If you can't do that, the next pass would pass it to a teammate who can pass it in their goal. And if you think with that simplicity, your possession now is a tool to achieve the objective of the game, which is actually a quote on Mikel Ibarra on his computer. That Pep said it. It's a tool. So we watch soccer probably on TV thinking, oh, tiki-taka, they want to pass the ball. No, it's just a tool to disrupt the opponent and find an opportunity to pass the ball into the goal. And so we've simplified our attack a little bit to that concept. Now we have a variety of different rotations, interchanges, and patterns that we play, which I'm not going to tell you. But that concept is pretty... Exactly. But that concept, we're still a possession team.
Yeah.
It's just that possession now is being used more to achieve the objective of the game, which is scoring goals.
Is it fair to say that... So I'm thinking back to the first interview pre-season when you came in. You kind of laid out a lot of principles with the way you wanted to play. And I think of you as, you're a young coach, right? Under 40.
Just.
Right, same, right?
It's coming.
We're both getting there. Right? But you had I would almost say idealistic principles. And is it fair to say that those principles ran up against some reality in the hustle and bustle of League One, and now you've had to tweak things a little bit to get results?
I don't think so. I do think I'm a better coach now than I was last time I sat in this room.
Right.
Because I've had an open mind to get better. I've found more clarity in my language over the last 6 months, and I think that's the biggest change for me as a coach. And
right.
It's probably, if you'll ask most players that play for me, current or past, what I try to do is set them up to express themselves, to have a lot of freedom. So when you talk about there's a structure, it might seem rigid. That is the pushback I get a lot from new players that work in me. Well, I have to run to this area. I have to make this pass. I have to look for this pass. That sounds really rigid, and there's a lack of freedom to it. But when you zoom out and really look at it, I'm just setting up the framework for you can do whatever you want, as long as your how is executing the goal of the game, the objective of the game, to try to score goals. So it sounds a bit more rigid, and I don't think I've changed in that sense. I've just been better at my language of setting up that tactical reference, defining the area where the players can freelance and can express themselves.
So it's not a change in coaching, it's just an improvement in coaching?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. Having a better understanding and exposing the players to kind of the nuance of what I'm asking, I'm giving a reason why we're set up this way and why you need to execute in this way. How they do it is dependent on the player. Greg Bame and Chinny have both played the number 10 for us this year. Both are very different players, physically, age, quickness, size. They're both going to execute those actions different because they're two different human beings with different sensibilities, and they interpret the information differently, but they're both trying to execute the same what that I've defined. So now that the players understand it's that simple, it's become easier to play with each other. So I think that's really the heart of the turnaround. But if you think about it, I said earlier, we didn't want to peak in April. We wanted to peak in September and October. And I think the nice thing is we're starting to do that. The disappointing part is we're 9 points off the playoff spot. So if we were a little bit closer, I'd feel a lot more comfortable. And so there's still work to be done. We're still under pressure. We still need to pick up points whenever possible.
So is it less important to you to have certain players consistently playing certain positions? Because that's the thing that I feel like would be especially challenging is, like in June when things aren't going well, the analogy I come up with is like my mother-in-law's printer wasn't working this past weekend, and I just kept trying different things, and I was like, now this will work. Well, now this will work. And eventually nothing works.
Off and back on again.
Yeah, shockingly, that didn't work either, even though that was suggested by the help service 4 times. But I feel like it can be a little bit maddening of like, I've tried that, and I've tried this, now I've tried this, and like, it seems like your philosophy is less like, okay, I've got to put this person in this spot and see if that works. Okay, that didn't work. Now I'm going to try this person. And more of I know what I want that position to be, and then whoever occupies that role, as long as they know the basics of it, I don't necessarily care about the details or the flair that they bring to it.
The details and flair, it's not for me to decide.
Okay.
That's for the players to execute based on their abilities. It would be... I'll put it like this. If we went outside right now and we found a Daryl on the street and brought him up here and said, do your show, it'd be difficult because you guys have a certain amount of communication, verbal, nonverbal. You're used to working each other. You know how to play off each other. So the more we can keep you two together, the better this show is going to be. It's the same thing for us. The more consistency we can keep in a midfield, the better. But you also have to, like we talked about, changing to keep guys engaged. Usually the starting group, the bulk of that starting group will play together. Even if you break it down into small side games, if you play 5v5, I try to break up the left 5 will play with the left 5. So you develop those communication patterns and you learn the habits of the teammates that you're going to play with. You can't just throw out random teams and expect them to play.
Yeah. Well, one thing that really surprised me is when you there was sort of a shape change or a lineup change that was very noticeable at the beginning of this run, and to me, it had, like, just because I'd only seen players play certain positions, it looked to me like everybody was out of position. Because, for example, the midfield 3 for a while now has been Braden Troyer in defensive-ish midfield, which I think is a natural fit for him, right? But then the other central midfielders are Bolduc and Mwape, and those guys that I've only seen play as wingers. So to me, it looks like, Coach Bulow's gone mad. He's putting wingers in central midfield. And then Josh Hughes, who's been a central midfielder, is now a left wing back, and I'm thinking, oh no, David's in trouble. What's he doing?
Less hopscotch.
Yeah, too much hopscotch has been crazy. But it's worked, right? So, like, I'm really interested in that transition. Like, did you take Josh Hughes aside one day and say, hey, I know you've been playing central midfield, how about left wing back? And to the two wingers, Moape and Baldock, like, you guys have played central midfield. Like, essentially I'm asking, how did you know this would work when it seems to go against common sense?
Josh was a little bit lucky, and maybe this is just the instincts of a coach. We said on Thursday in Canada, or a pregame training session, hey, Josh, how comfortable would you feel playing left back? And he said, yeah, sure, I'll try it. So, I mean, that was the extent of it.
Right.
Because we had some visa issues with Yvonne and Charles Boateng.
Oh, getting into Canada.
Into Canada, so we had to kind of think on the fly there. It was a gamble, but sometimes you just listen to your gut and your heart and see if it works. It's funny.
The phrase is necessity is the mother of invention.
Exactly. You know, Mutaya and Matt, it's funny, a good friend of mine, Eric Dutt, he said after that first game, after the Orlando game, he goes, Mutaya and Matt, you played them there. That was brave, but it worked. So well done. I think there was some reflection of the players and a request to change the system to what we played against NCFC, which I thought was our best game of the season, to the Open Cup game, where I think we really completely outplayed them in the first half, and then they brought on some subs and kind of wore us down and kind of deserved that win. We could have put that game in the way in the first half, though, and it would have been far different. But I think the players said, look, we've gone 8 games without a win. Can we try it? This seemed to work. Can we look to go back to it? And so, you know, Meek and I sat and, maybe let's give it a try. But again, if you base your game model on principles instead of a formation, the formation kind of doesn't matter.
Right.
You know, all the formation does is change where your starting point is. It might change the communication patterns of, I'm going to work more with you. You and me, Taylor, are going to be working in this game, but if we change the formation, less likely work with you and more with you, Daryl. You know, so, but the principles are all the same. What patterns we're looking for, what rotations we're making, those haven't changed at all. So we could play a 3-5-2, we could play a 4-3-2-1, you know, we could play a 4-2-3-1. I mean, we could. And the formations are kind of endless that you can play as long as the team understands. And again, I think this gets to the clarity of my language and their understanding of the principles. We can say, hey, look, this is no different than what we did before. Just you're starting from this position.
But did the personnel change the style of play? Because to me, it's looked like, I don't know if you would agree with this or not, but I want to suggest it, that like having Baldock and Moape in central midfield, because they're wingers, they're a little more direct, they're a little more willing to carry the ball forward than the other midfield three used to be. And it felt like maybe some of the possession that didn't progress far enough has changed because you've got two guys who are a bit more direct playing central midfield.
Yeah, I think, Matt, he was a big miss during that spell that we were losing. I mean, he was injured. So I think it's no secret that he came back into the team when we started winning. He's been that important for us. And I think one of his characteristics are, he gets the ball and he runs. And that causes troubles for any defense. And I think a hallmark of what we've done well is we put the opponent in awkward positions. There's defending patterns that the opponent's used to dealing with that they can't. It's I should be marking this guy, but he's 30 yards away from me. Do I go with him or do I stay? We do a good job of forcing the opponent to make a decision. And once they make their decision, then we make ours, and they've already made theirs, and now you probably see with one of our rotations, it's a hallmark of our success. If we see a center back out in the wide channel defending somebody, center backs don't want to be out there. I mean, that's very intentional. If they don't follow them, then we have a free chance in the wide channel. If we can drag a center back out in the middle, now there's only one center back left to defend a ball that's going to be coming back, into the central area. So our game model is all about making choices and having the opponent make choices, make decisions, and then we try to capitalize on that based on what they make. So none of that has changed. The starting position and the formation may change, but none of that has really changed. So that's been why, yes, maybe the personnel will change, but our principles don't, and we've been hammering home our principles for 6 months, and I think now they're at a point where they really understand them, and it's becoming a little bit autonomous now. So,
but so then for a player like Maxi, who starts like every game of the season, is the captain, then sits for the Orlando game, you get the win. He sits again. The next game, you get the win. Then comes back, I think, for the third game and is now playing a different position. Like, does he take that personally, that you've dropped him and now suddenly things are turning around? Like, is he able to respond to that? Or is it just, again, the kind of rotation, he knows what's coming?
He's a young player. So he's, he had 2 years experience in the championship with San Antonio, but he didn't play a lot of minutes. And I think he's just in a stage of his learning the game. He's a really passionate, hardworking player. And, Meek and I constantly tell him, don't play with your heart. Play with your head first. Use your heart to kind of drive you on, but you have to play through your head first. And I think
that seems, by the way, for people who maybe out or don't play that much, that probably sounds incredibly counterintuitive. That sounds like, what? No, it's all about heart. Like, you got to fight. But no, that is such wise words that I want to tell the team that we coach that too. That it's it's not just about what you feel you should be doing. It's now think for a moment and remember what you've been asked to do.
We'll write that down and use it tonight.
Please stop shooting from an acute angle.
We've all played with somebody, rec or otherwise. It's just go. But they're confusing.
And they inevitably cost you the goal.
They're confusing to play with.
Yeah.
You appreciate their passion, but I like a little bit more thoughtful, cerebral player, and
especially because Maxi's so technical, right? He's
absolutely,
really
his ceiling is so high, and we're probably pretty harsh on Maxi because we expect a lot of him. We think, he's 23. In 4 years he'll be hitting his prime. He really could be a big player. He's got the physical profile, technical ability. It's just, can he slow down and think the game a little bit better? And to his credit, he took him out of the team. He didn't like it, but he approached it in the right way. He said, okay, I'll still motivate guys. I'll still do my job in training that I have to keep the team, accountable. And when he gets his chance, he takes it. So it's not an easy thing to be taken out of the team. But all you can be as a manager is honest and give them an opportunity if they do well. So
maybe it was a good mix of head and heart for the first goal on Saturday, where he chased that ball down, got the slide tackle in that popped up in the air.
Well, absolutely. That's a perfect example of his movement was exactly in line with the team principles.
Because he was involved in that wing play.
His wing play set that up. It was a really good recognition from him, and that's hard to defend. Somebody running from that deep is not expected. So, but then, yes, his heart there to chase it down and keep the play going, which led to first goal. I thought it was a good goal. So those are the type of chances that we're trying to create kind of on a holistic view.
Well, we appreciate you coming in. We don't want to take up too much of your time, but I do want to ask you before we let you go, are you happy with Arsenal's start to the season?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I thought you would be.
No, yeah, it's been good.
You seem like you'd be a Ceballos fan.
He was really good.
Yeah, right.
I really liked him, yeah. Good on the ball, but again, with some purpose to his play. So, yeah, he was exciting. Pepe looked good.
You excited for David Luiz in the back?
You know what? I was really what is the in The Simpsons when Sideshow Bob steps on that?
Oh, the rake? Yeah.
That's what I was. That's probably how I feel. That was the noise I made when I heard it.
It fits because he's got a little Sideshow Bob vibe to him as well. There we go.
But if you think about it, he is a player that's won just about everywhere he's been.
Yeah. If it's him or Mustafi,
it's probably him. Yeah. But I don't. Blunders are easy to put on a blooper reel, but I think he probably has, way more positive actions than negative.
I think so too.
And he seems like a good character, and it sounds like everybody loves him, every dressing room he's in. So I think it's probably a good thing. But we'll see. I'm keeping expectations way low.
All right, top four guaranteed then? Is that what I'm hearing from you? All right, cool.
Final question before we sign out, let you finish your mate. When's the next game?
With next game, we're away to Forward Madison.
Away to Madison.
Yeah.
All the Madison games are finally begun, right?
We play all the Lansing and then all the Madison and all the Toronto.
See, I feel like you're both wearing Madison colors right now. That's what's most disconcerting to me.
I'm so tempted to buy a Flamingo shirt and wear it on Saturday. I'm so tempted. But no,
I'm sure they'd give you one if you asked.
Stanley from The Office will be there. So.
I know. I'm excited.
We're excited to go back.
Leslie?
The Red Army is fantastic. They are really great.
Yeah.
But Madison, to their credit, has done a really good job of creating an atmosphere. The fans are right on top of you.
It's easier to buy an inflatable flamingo than an inflatable kangaroo. I'm just throwing that out there. That does make it slightly easier.
I'm on it.
All right. You're gonna. Okay, cool. I appreciate that.
And when's the next home game?
Next home game. Then we're away to Tormenta. It's not for another couple weeks. So,
okay.
Yeah, The schedule's been wild, but not
All
much
right.
you can do about it. So
We can't make the trip to Madison, but we'll be all over ESPN Plus.
We will.
definitely.
This
Definitely.
week.
We'll definitely be there for the home game against Madison.
Yes, we will.
I've already begun the trash talking, so I'm going to need y'all to keep that one going for me, please.
Good.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you, David. We really appreciate it, as always, you coming in and sharing with us the reminder that we should be buying mate containers
Yes.
and drinking mate
Kind
throughout
of, right?
the shows. I think
TSS
so.
purchase?
Probably.
Yeah.
I'm good with that if you
All
are.
right, let's do it. All right, let's have the Red Army play us out for the end of the show.